Hello and good morning, or wherever you are, maybe also good afternoon, to this new edition of Starburst in Action. This webinar will take around 30 minutes. Please feel free to put your questions into the chat on the right side, and we will make an effort to answer them as soon as possible, or in the Q&A session following this presentation. My name is Corby Tolna. I'm running the Solution Architect team for Europe at Starburst. And today we have a special guest, Daniel Kratschmann from DB Regio. Daniel, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, Corby, for the pleasant introduction. I hope everybody can hear me and see the presentation. I think, yeah, looks good. Okay, welcome to Optimizing Data and Analytics. I want to share today some ideas and thoughts about how we did that at DB Regio AG. My name is Daniel Kratschmann. I'm a VP of Engineering and Analytics at DB Regio AG, and I'm responsible for everything that is data. So data ingestion, data integration, making data work for use cases, applications, and most importantly, our KPI steering dashboards. More on that later. But first of all, what do we do at DB Regio? Well, we are 100% a mobility services provider, and we do that throughout of Germany. We are very well known for our public mass transportation systems, the Regio trains, our urban train systems, the S-Bahn, and possibly lesser known regional networks and our nationwide bus services. Our current mission is for the entirety of Deutsche Bahn AG, the strategy Starke Schiene. And for Regio specifically, that means by 2030, we will have plus 1 billion passengers on rail or in public transport in general. And when this strategy was created, this number was at 1.6 billion. So within roughly a decade, there's a stark increase, expected increase of 60%. How do we do that? Well, obviously, of course, we need to build a lot of new infrastructure and we need to repair a lot of infrastructure. I don't need to tell you that this is a very time-consuming process. So if we want to achieve this goal, we have to do more. And since we are not building infrastructure and we are in the business of operating trains, our target is to be more efficient and effective through top-of-class KPI steering. To us, the idea of having everything in one place, build meaningful data sets, have meaningful KPIs, which we then use to steer decisions within the entirety of our group, was very appealing, but not only dashboards, of course, very specific applications to aid our processes and other use cases, for instance, artificial intelligence or machine learning. Typically, the process looks like this. So if you go from analog to digital, of course, you need data. You have to make the data work for the business. And only then you can achieve digital transformation. The challenge with that process is that it becomes ever more harder. So each step is more difficult than the last. Regardless of the complexity of going from back to start, we did precisely that. And we had very good reason to do it. So contrary to, I think, popular belief, at Deutsche Bahn, many systems already went from analog to digital. So we had a lot of data, but it was not combined in one place, not available in one place. So we set out with a set of starter use cases to drive digital transformation use cases with dashboards and with applications, and we closed the gap of making the data work for the business. In order to do so, we committed to a data lake architecture, and we founded a small startup organization within DB Regio that was tasked to develop these use cases and to develop an infrastructure pattern that would scale out in the end. We integrate that into the CIO and CDO branch of DB Regio. At DB Regio, the CIO and CDO branches controls all of the IT budgets for DB Regio, and we have a performance portfolio process, we call it that, which is basically all of our customers, may it be regions or competence centers within Regio. They address use cases at the CIO branch, so we were able to precisely pick things that would make our strategy work and to provide very good value and business benefit right from the start. We also had the luck that we could start on the green field, almost on the green field. At DB Regio, we had a Click cluster in place and some Tableau dashboards. Nowadays, we mostly do Power BI. In fact, we have a very big migration going on to Power BI. We are going to retire our Click cluster. Back in the days, Click was not only used to get some dashboards, but Regio used it also heavily to prepare data to be displayed at our dashboards. And we wanted to couple that with our data lake. So we wanted to assist the process of KPI steering. But we quickly discovered that is not only processes on Click, there were some data warehouses, many different technologies. We discovered that there are a lot of different flat files, databases, APIs, interfaces, arbitrary protocols that are not very standard. And we then quickly started to implement Python Airflow DAGs to ingest all the data and to prepare it for further processing. And it just grew from there. So, of course, we started to put Parquet files in our data lake, discover that Iceberg is a very good format, so tried Delta Lake and Hoodie for different reasons. We played around with Redshift. We had Spark in place on EMR clusters. We had NiFi and Kafka, everything on AWS. So you also need some CI/CD and some deployment mechanisms. So it just exploded over the course of a few years. And we needed to strip down and reduce overhead and complexity. Because what we did was we did not really enable dashboarding. Well, we did enable dashboarding, but not in a way or in the amount that we wanted to do in the beginning. So we said, well, we need to optimize this. And we came up with a super simple layering approach. And we said, well, we are going to commit to this layering approach. And we have at most 2, maybe 3 tools per layer to keep it simple. And the interfaces between the layers should be easy and clear. So we started again to say, well, Click and Power BI. This is the most important use case as of now, because for the KPI steering capabilities, dashboards are a very good choice or a very good tool that works for DB Regio. And obviously, we cannot go the data warehouse way, because if you started with a data lake, you have terabytes of data, and making them available through a simple data warehouse, this comes with a lot of cost and with a lot of maintenance. We also tried using Redshift. For those of you who don't know Redshift, Redshift is a solution by AWS that references data in your data lake and serves it with SQL language. That made things very simple in the beginning, but the scaling was difficult because Redshift becomes very expensive in the end. So we had to look for another solution. We needed something that is simple, accessible, scales, and very importantly, has optionality to it. So we did not want to have a tool that has a transparency layer or an opaqueness to the data that is behind that tool. And well, of course, it needed to be cost effective. Turns out there is such a tool. Big surprise, it's Starburst, today's host of the webinar. And what we really liked about Starburst is that it's simply a query engine. And it has a lot of connectivity to other data sources, and it does not hide data in its own ecosystem. You can interface with many, many tools. It is very simple to integrate. And for our business intelligence solutions, it was a very good fit because Qlik, Power BI, Looker, Tableau, and so on, they dominantly speak SQL. They have other connectors as well, but what works the best, at least our finding, is SQL. This has also something to do with the people who are developing dashboards. Data analysts typically all can speak SQL and are used to the language. And then we've reduced our tech stack dramatically. So nowadays we have a broad range of data sources. We integrate them using Python and Airflow. This pattern stuck because the diversity of systems is just too great at Deutsche Bahn. And we tried a few tools, turnkey solutions that all kind of failed because we still needed Python and Airflow to do all of our data integration. We committed to bucket storage because it's cheap. We still need relational database systems, PostgreSQL, because it's open source and very powerful, very cost effective. And for some special use cases, we still need Oracle databases and analytics and serving. So the customer facing backend, front end is always Starburst through the entirety of the group. May it be on-premise systems or on AWS or Azure. Power BI is an Azure-only tool, and to be honest, Starburst enabled us to do the migration because multi-cloud without an intermediary layer is very difficult to do. So Starburst enabled our Power BI migration. On top of that, we discovered there are many people who like to play around with data, and having a simple analytics and serving layer enabled a lot of people to become citizen developers, either by querying directly or pulling in data and process it further using Python or other tools. And we found out that many applications actually like using SQL because they can do some aggregations or some filtering of data before ingesting it, which is a little bit more difficult if you have a vast data lake where many, many, many very large data sets are present. But the biggest selling point for us, as of now, we still have one of the smallest possible clusters, one of the smallest possible licenses for Starburst Enterprise Edition, deployed not really on-prem, it's our AWS accounts at Deutsche Bahn, but it's a closed cloud ecosystem. And although it's a very small cluster, we have a very big impact. So we could enable over 2,500 dashboards with it, and we see continuous growth. So we will upgrade soon. We are convinced that this tool will support us in our mission to even grow bigger than that. We have enabled over 50 use cases, either directly or indirectly, by deploying Starburst, because even if it's a use case where there's an application layer that uses a traditional programming language as an approach, even then accessing buckets directly sometimes is tedious. This has also to do with some security limitations and restrictions at Deutsche Bahn. So Starburst also enabled that. As of today, we have roughly 2 terabytes daily read on our very small Starburst cluster. This number is growing. And interestingly enough, we were able to achieve all of this with 0 additional cost. So by massively simplifying our architecture, our tech stack, reducing overhead and redundancies, we could shut down a lot of systems, a lot of unnecessary data warehouses, or other applications that we simply needed to get data from A to B. We were able to balance the costs. One thing that you have to keep in mind, well, I said work smart, not hard, but there is some challenge to it. Although it's a great tool and we are convinced of Starburst, it's not a turnkey solution, especially if you host it on your own infrastructure. You should be very comfortable to roll your own CI/CD. You still need integration of existing data. You still need data modeling and fine-tuning of configuration files. And of course, you need to roll access management. Starburst is simply a very powerful query engine with extra features. So you still need, so to say, the rest of data integration, cleaning, scheduling, etc. And yes, we massively reduced complexity and we shut down systems, but still you have +1 standard. So it's a compute cluster that uses data from many sources and it has its own query syntax. Granted, it's standard SQL, but still developers must be aware of the data source limitations and the Starburst limitations. Like how is the pushdown behavior if I dispatch a query via Starburst? What are maybe certain restrictions in using Starburst with this and that tool? Maybe use another tool to come around and optimize. And the performance optimizations, it's something you have to learn. But in the end, for us, the convincing factor was 0 additional cost, and we will grow from here. And in the end, we achieved our goal. So top-of-class KPI steering with meaningful KPIs in basically near time. Thank you very much. And if you like, I'm open for questions.
Daniel, thank you so much. That's very insightful, impressive that you've achieved over 50 use cases with the help of Starburst. For me, the highlights were that you literally centralized on Starburst as your data serving layer and analytics layer, that you could do the migration from Power BI from Qlik to Power BI with it, something that our tool and Starburst Enterprise and Starburst Galaxy is often used for, is we provide an abstraction layer to enable both worlds, the old world and the new world, in parallel with little to no impact to the users. And the keyword citizen developer that you mentioned, I think that's something that we see in the industry as well. A lot of companies striving for giving literacy, data literacy to their users, and it seems you achieved that. There's a question from Pedro in the chat, how you'd handled MDM with MDM. I assume it's master data management and not mobile device management. Any ambitions to build an MDM around, or was that never a topic?
Yes, that is what Oracle databases are for in our setup. So we use Oracle Apex to provide very simple interfaces to have MDM capabilities, and our Oracle databases are directly linked to Starburst. So you have massive amounts of data in the data lake, and if you need master data to refine it and to annotate it, then you couple that with an Oracle database, which is a capability that was amazing, because before you would pull it from the source, put it somewhere, and then process it. It was a mess because you need to keep it all in sync. And now the tool that needs information, that needs data, simply queries down, and either they do it themselves identify the data sets that are necessary to do this, but we also have specific data products that we have designed for Regio that you can simply contract, where certain master data is already joined with the actual data that's in the data lake. For instance, if you need positional data on trains for a certain region, you can contract that as a data product. And this is, of course, joined with master data to filter it down to the level that you need.
Perfect. And I think that's very much aligned with the best practices that we would advise to as well in the traditional MDM projects, which at least in my career, I have hardly seen any turn out successful. But the traditional MDM projects, they would copy everything into kind of a canonical data source or a golden record, where in Starburst, you would typically keep the data at the source, leave the ownership of the data to the actual data owners, but use a data product to provide an abstraction layer and to serve the same purpose. Also, in the context of the semantic layer that is currently everywhere in the industry and that is super important for AI, I think data products are a very good tool to build that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Another question, Daniel, how was your journey with Starburst? How long did it take you to get productive, to get your first use cases onboarded since you started a few years ago?
Yeah, so we did a demo with Starburst. They were kind enough to lend a license for free, so we could test the setup over the course, I think, of 2 to 3 months it was, and we very quickly started to use Starburst after that. The reason for that is that we already had a Redshift cluster in place, and the metadata management is done through AWS Glue. So we could simply tell Starburst, hey, well, please check this metadata catalog and serve it to our customers. We had to do some alterations because of how Redshift uses metadata and Starburst uses metadata. But for the big data sets that were present in Redshift, we basically had within a week or two of our production ready but empty Starburst cluster, they were running.
Cool, yeah. That's impressive.
Yeah,
very nice. Cool. I don't see any further questions in the chat for now, so that means we have a wrap. Everybody, thanks for your